The massive viewport on the bridge of the ESS Defiant revealed nothing but enemy ships. They filled the blackness of space like angry red stars, stretching as far as the eye could see. Captain James Miller stood tall, his hands clasped behind his back, showing no fear even though his ship was the last one standing between Earth and total destruction. 3 days ago, there had been 50 ships in Earth's defense fleet. Now, only the Defiant remained. The enemy had taken out every other vessel, one by one. But somehow, they hadn't been able to destroy the Defiant. And Miller knew why. His ship was special. It wasn't just another warship, it was Earth's newest and most advanced vessel, packed with technology that even he didn't fully understand. As the crew prepared for what might be their final battle, Tom Walker, the young communications officer, spoke up. His hands trembled slightly as he worked at his station, but his voice stayed steady. Miller liked that about him. The kid was scared, but he didn't let it stop him from doing his job. "Captain," Walker said, "they're sending another message, and put it on the main screen," Miller ordered. He turned to face the large display at the front of the bridge as it flickered to life. The face that appeared was alien, but somehow still managed to look smug. The creature's gray skin shimmered like metal, and its eyes glowed with an unnatural red light. "B, this is Supreme Commander Rakton of the Stellar Empire," the alien boomed, its voice deep and scratchy, like rocks being crushed. "Your pathetic resistance ends now. Surrender your vessel, and we may spare your worthless lives." Miller didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked around at his bridge crew, 15 men and women who had fought alongside him through a week of endless battles. They were tired, yes, but none of them looked beaten. Even after watching 49 other ships get destroyed, they still believed they could win. And Miller wasn't about to let them down. "Supreme Commander," Miller said, keeping his voice calm and relaxed, "I have a counteroffer. Why don't you surrender to us? It would save us both a lot of time." The alien's face twisted in rage. "You dare mock the might of the Empire? We have 3,000 ships surrounding your position. You have one damaged vessel." Miller smiled then. "It seems like a fair fight." The alien commander slammed his fist down off-screen. "You have 1 hour to surrender. After that, we will destroy your ship, and then we will burn your planet to ash." As the transmission ended, Lisa Reed, the science officer, spoke up. "Sir, he wasn't lying about those numbers. I'm counting 2,847 enemy vessels. They've arranged themselves in an attack sphere around us. There's no way through their lines." "There's always a way, Lieutenant," Miller replied. He walked over to his command chair and sat down, thinking hard about their options. The Defiant was humanity's most advanced ship, but it was still just one ship. They had some tricks up their sleeve, but against almost 3,000 enemy vessels. Suddenly, a new voice spoke, one that didn't come from any of the crew. Everyone on the bridge looked around in surprise. They all knew the ship's artificial intelligence, which they called Max, but it had never spoken without being addressed first. "Captain Miller, I believe now would be an appropriate time to inform you of my full capabilities." "What do you mean, Max?" Miller asked, leaning forward in his chair. "I am not merely a standard ship AI, Captain. I am an experimental quantum intelligence. This ship carries technologies that even you have not been briefed about. We were designed to be humanity's last resort, a weapon that could only be revealed when all other options were exhausted." Miller felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of weapon?" "The kind that turns an enemy's strength against them," Max replied. "The Empire believes they are stronger because they have more ships. They do not realize that every one of those ships is an opportunity for us." The ship's main screen changed, showing complex diagrams and specifications that Miller had never seen before. "When I was activated," Max continued, "I began analyzing every piece of enemy technology one could detect. I have discovered something fascinating. Their entire fleet runs on standardized systems, one code base copied across thousands of ships. They value uniformity over innovation." "And how does that help us?" asked Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson, who had been quietly monitoring his station. "Because, Chief Thompson, I was designed to exploit exactly that kind of weakness. Inside my quantum processors, I carry what you might call a virus, though that word barely describes its true nature. It is an adaptive program that can infiltrate and rewrite any computer system it encounters. Once it enters the Empire's network, it could spread to their entire fleet. Miller stood up, finally understanding. New energy flowed through him. How do we deliver this virus? We need to get close to their command ship to establish a quantum link, Max explained. But there is a problem. At our current position, we would be destroyed by their combined firepower before we could get within range. Miller walked to the front of the bridge, staring out at the sea of enemy ships. They had less than an hour before the Empire attacked. They needed a plan, and fast. As he watched, debris from earlier battles floated past the window, and suddenly, an idea hit him. Max, he said, how good are your stealth systems? The best ever created by human science, Captain. But even they cannot hide us from 3,000 ships actively scanning for us. They don't need to, Miller said, smiling. They just need to hide the fact that we're still alive. He turned to face his crew. Listen up, everyone. I have a plan. It's crazy, it's dangerous, and it might get us all killed. But if it works, we might just save Earth and take down an empire in the process. The crew looked at him with a mixture of fear and determination. They had followed him through a week of impossible battles. They would follow him through this too. What's the plan, sir? Walker asked, sitting up straighter at his station. We're going to die, Miller said. Or at least, we're going to make them think we did. Max, how close do we need to get to their command ship to upload your virus? Within 5 kilometers, Captain. Any further, and a quantum link would be too weak to guarantee successful transmission. All right, then. Here's what we're going to do. When their ultimatum runs out, they're going to attack. We're going to put on a show, make them think they've destroyed us. Then we'll power down everything except basic life support and drift through their fleet like just another piece of wreckage, right toward their command ship. The bridge was silent as everyone considered the plan. It was Lieutenant Reed who spoke first. Sir, if we power down that much, we'll have no shields, no weapons, and minimal life support. If they scan us, they won't, Miller interrupted confidently. You saw how their commander acted. They're arrogant. They think they've already won. Why would they waste time scanning a destroyed ship? The plan has a 37% chance of success, Max added. Which, given our current alternatives, represents our best option. Miller looked around at his crew. I won't order any of you to do this. If we're detected, we'll be destroyed with no chance to fight back. If anyone wants to use the escape pods before we start, I'll understand. One by one, the crew members stood at their stations. No one moved toward the exit. They were all scared, Miller could see it in their eyes, but they were also ready to do whatever it took to save their world. Very well, Miller said. He walked back to his chair and sat down. Stations, everyone. We've got 40 minutes to prepare for our own destruction. Let's make it convincing. He looked up at the ceiling, where he imagined Max's presence to be. And, Max, I want to know everything about this virus of yours. If we're going to unleash it on the Empire's fleet, I want to know exactly what it's going to do. As his crew began their preparations, Miller allowed himself a small smile. The Empire thought they had humanity trapped and beaten. They were about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating their opponents. Sometimes, the most dangerous weapon wasn't the biggest ship or the strongest army, it was a single vessel with the right technology and a crew crazy enough to use it. The next 30 minutes on the bridge of the Defiant were filled with intense activity. While the crew prepared for their fake destruction, Max explained more about the virus hidden in its systems. The AI's voice remained calm as it revealed secrets that made the crew's eyes widen in amazement. The virus is designed to be unstoppable once released, Max explained. It doesn't just take over systems, it learns and adapts. Every ship it infects makes it stronger and smarter. The Empire won't be able to stop it because it will keep changing faster than they can fight it. Chief Engineer Thompson shook his head in wonder as he looked at the technical details on his screen. This is incredible, but also terrifying. Why didn't they tell us about this weapon before? Because, Miller said, understanding now, if the Empire knew we had this, they would never have attacked us directly. They would have found another way. We needed them to commit their entire fleet. He looked at his tactical display, where thousands of red dots surrounded their single blue one. And they have, he muttered, sir. Walker called out from communications. We're receiving reports from Earth. The Empire's ships are moving into attack positions. 20 minutes until their ultimatum expires. Miller nodded. Time to get ready. Thompson, start shutting down non-essential systems. Reed, calculate the exact course we'll need to drift toward their command ship. Max, show us which one that is on the main screen. One of the enemy ships lit up brighter than the others. It was massive, at least 10 times the size of the Defiant. Around it, other ships moved in complex patterns, protecting their leader. That's our target, Miller said. Once we get close enough, Max can upload the virus. But first, we need to convince them they've destroyed us. He pressed a button on his chair. All hands, this is the captain. In 20 minutes, we're going to let the Empire think they've won. We'll be running on minimal power, no heat, no gravity, barely enough air to breathe. It will be cold, dark, and uncomfortable. But if we can fool them, we can save Earth. Stand by for further instructions. As the minutes ticked by, the crew worked quickly to prepare. They stored loose items that might float in zero gravity, put on warm clothes to fight the coming cold, and set up emergency batteries to keep basic life support running while everything else was powered down. 5 minutes to deadline, Walker announced. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife. Miller stood up from his chair. Max, are you ready? Yes, Captain. I have prepared a very convincing explosion. When their weapons hit our shields, I will create a blast that will fool their sensors. We will appear to break apart spectacularly. Good. Thompson, how long can we survive on minimal power? The chief engineer looked worried. 6 hours, maybe 7 if we're lucky. After that, we'll run out of heat and air. The cold will get us before the lack of oxygen does. Then we better make sure we reach that command ship in less than 6 hours, Miller said. He looked around at his crew. Everyone ready? This is going to get rough. The crew nodded. They all knew the risks. If anything went wrong, if the Empire spotted them, if they drifted off course, if the virus didn't work, they would die. But they would die anyway if they did nothing, and their whole planet would die with them. 1 minute to deadline, Walker said quietly. Miller sat back in his chair and gripped the armrests. All right, Max. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. The minutes ticked down to 0. On the main screen, they watched as thousands of enemy ships began to move. Weapons powered up across the Empire's fleet, creating a light show that would have been beautiful if it wasn't meant to kill them. Multiple weapons locked on us, Reed reported. They're going to hit us from all sides. Hold steady, Miller ordered. Wait for it. The first shots came like a wave of light. The Defiant's shields lit up as they absorbed the attack. More shots followed, hundreds of them, thousands, all focusing on the single Earth ship that dared to stand against an Empire. Shields at 60%, Thompson called out. 40%, 20%, now, Max. Miller shouted. The ship's AI acted instantly. As the next wave of shots hit their shields, Max created a massive explosion that looked like their shields failing completely. The blast was perfectly timed, perfectly realistic. To anyone watching, it would look like the Defiant had finally been overwhelmed by the Empire's attack. At the same time, every system on the ship shut down. The lights went out. The artificial gravity failed. The constant hum of engines that the crew had lived with for so long went silent. Emergency red lights came on, running on battery power and casting eerie shadows across the bridge. Through the windows, they could see pieces of their ship seeming to break away and scatter, but these weren't real pieces. They were special devices designed to fool enemy sensors, making it look like the Defiant had been blown to pieces. "All stations, report," Miller said softly in the silence of their powered-down ship. He didn't need to speak loudly. "Weapons offline," came one reply. "Engines offline," came another. "Life support at minimal levels," Thompson reported. Temperature already starting to drop. The crew began to float in their seats as the artificial gravity fully failed. They had all strapped themselves down, expecting this, but it was still a strange feeling. "External cameras show the explosion was convincing," Reed said, checking the readings on her emergency screen. "They've stopped firing. They think we're dead." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Now comes the hard part. Are we on the right course?" The science officer checked her calculations. "Yes, sir. The explosion pushed us in exactly the right direction. At our current drift speed, we'll reach the command ship in 5 hours and 20 minutes. 5 hours and 20 minutes, Miller repeated. He could already feel the cold starting to creep in. Without power to the heating systems, the ship would slowly freeze. They would have to endure it, floating in darkness, pretending to be dead, hoping the Empire didn't look too closely at the wreckage. "Sir," Walker whispered, "the Empire is broadcasting. They're celebrating their victory." "Let them celebrate," Miller said. "Pride comes before a fall, and they're about to fall harder than anyone in history." He looked around at his crew, their faces lit only by the dim red emergency lights. "Everyone, try to stay warm. Move around if you have to, but be careful. We don't want to create any heat signatures they might detect. And remember, we only have to endure this for 5 hours. Just 5 hours, and then we can show the Empire what humanity is really capable of." As the Defiant drifted through space, looking like just another piece of destroyed ship floating among the debris of battle, the Empire's fleet began to spread out. They thought they had won. They thought Earth's last defense was destroyed. They didn't know that their greatest enemy was floating right through their lines, carrying a weapon that would bring their entire empire crashing down. In the cold and darkness of the powered-down ship, Miller watched the massive Imperial command ship slowly growing larger in the distance. 5 hours was a long time to drift through space, especially in the growing cold. But when he looked at his crew, he saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. They would endure. They would survive. And when they reached that command ship, the Empire would learn that they had made a terrible mistake in underestimating humanity. The first 2 hours of drifting were the easiest. The crew of the Defiant kept themselves busy checking emergency systems and monitoring the Empire's fleet through passive sensors that used almost no power. The cold was uncomfortable but not yet dangerous. They could still feel their fingers and toes, and their breath wasn't visible in the dim red emergency lighting. But by the 3rd hour, things got worse. The temperature had dropped well below freezing. Ice crystals formed on the inside of the windows. Every breath came out as a white cloud. The crew wrapped themselves in emergency blankets, but the cold found ways to creep in anyway. "Status report," Miller said through chattering teeth. Like everyone else, he was strapped into his seat to keep from floating away in the zero gravity. "Temperature is -10 degrees Celsius and still falling," Thompson reported, his voice shaking from the cold. "We've got ice forming on some of the internal sensors. If it gets much colder, we might start losing systems." "Hull temperature is nearly at zero," Reed added. "The good news is that makes us look even more like debris. The bad news is, we're all going to freeze if this takes much longer." Miller nodded, then looked at the main screen, where Max was tracking their progress. "How much longer until we reach the target?" 2 hours and 47 minutes at current drift velocity, Max replied. The AI's voice was the only one that didn't shake from the cold. "However, we have a more immediate problem. 3 Imperial scout ships are moving through the debris field. They appear to be looking for survivors." The crew tensed. This was something they had feared might happen. Their fake destruction had been convincing, but the Empire was being thorough. "How close will they come to us?" Miller asked. At their current course, the nearest scout will pass within 100 meters of our position in approximately 17 minutes. Miller thought quickly. They couldn't power up weapons or shields, that would give them away instantly. They couldn't change course, their drift had to look natural. They had to find another way. Thompson, he said, what if we vented some plasma from the starboard tubes? Made it look like radiation leaking from battle damage? The chief engineer thought for a moment. It would use some of our emergency power, but it might work. Radiation leaks are common in destroyed ships. If we time it right, it might even push us a little further from their scanning range. Do it, Miller ordered. But make it look random, natural. While Thompson worked on the plasma leak, Miller watched the scout ships through the frozen windows. They were small compared to the other Imperial ships, but still bigger than the Defiant. Their sharp, angular designs made them look like predatory birds circling through the debris field. Scout ship approaching, Max announced. They are using active scanners. Everyone held their breath. The scout ship grew larger in their view, its scanning beams sweeping through the wreckage. Just then, Thompson activated the plasma vent. A soft purple cloud leaked from the Defiant's side, spreading out in the zero-gravity like glowing fog. The scout ship's scanners passed over them once, twice. Miller's hand gripped his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. If they discover us now, scout ship is changing course, Max reported. The radiation leak appears to have convinced them we are no threat. They are moving away. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief, which turned into white puffs in the freezing air. Good work, Thompson, Miller said. But don't celebrate yet. We've still got a long way to go. And it's only going to get colder. He was right. Over the next hour, the temperature dropped another 10 degrees. The emergency blankets became stiff with frost. Every surface in the ship was covered with a thin layer of ice. The crew had to keep moving their arms and legs to prevent frostbite, but even that small movement was becoming difficult. Captain, Walker called out, his voice barely above a whisper, I'm picking up Imperial communications. They're sending ships to Earth. They're going to bomb it. They won't have time, Miller said firmly. How long until we reach the command ship, Max? 1 hour and 12 minutes, Captain. However, I must inform you that the crew's core body temperatures are dropping to dangerous levels. Even with the emergency power we have left, we may not be able to keep life support running long enough to complete the mission. Miller looked around at his crew. Their faces were pale, their lips turning blue from the cold. Some were shivering so hard they could barely stay in their seats. But none of them suggested giving up. None of them asked to power up the engines and make a run for it. They all knew what was at stake. We've come too far to fail now, Miller said. Thompson, divert power from everything except life support and Max's core systems. Shut down every sensor we're not absolutely using. We need to keep the air flowing for just a little longer. As the ship grew even darker, with only the emergency lights still working, Miller thought about all the people back on Earth who were counting on them, even though they didn't know it. He thought about how the Empire had destroyed 49 other ships, good ships with brave crews, thinking that numbers and power were all that mattered. Max, he said suddenly, you said the virus learns and adapts. What exactly will it do to their ships? The virus will infiltrate their computer systems through their quantum communication network, Max explained. It will start by taking control of their weapons and engines, then it will spread to life support, artificial gravity, everything. Within minutes, their entire fleet will be under our control. And then what? Then, Captain, we can make them do anything we want. We can shut down their weapons. We can turn their ships against each other. We can even send their entire fleet into the nearest sun if we choose. Miller shook his head. No. When we take control, I want you to do something else, something that will hurt the Empire more than destroying their ships ever could. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I want you to unlock their computers, all of them. Show their crews every secret the Empire has been keeping. Let them see the truth about who they're really serving. Intriguing strategy, Captain, Max said. You believe the Empire's own people will turn against them? People can accept a lot of bad things from their leaders, Max, Miller replied. But nobody likes discovering they've been lied to. When the Empire's soldiers and citizens see the truth, well, let's just say we won't have to destroy their ships. They'll do that themselves. A small alert sounded, drawing everyone's attention. Through the frozen windows, they could see the Imperial command ship growing larger. They were getting close. 40 minutes to optimal virus deployment range, Max announced. Miller nodded, then spoke to his crew. Just 40 more minutes. I know you're cold. I know you're tired. But in 40 minutes, we're going to change the galaxy forever. The Empire thinks they've already won. They think we're dead, our ship destroyed, our planet defenseless. They're about to learn that their biggest mistake wasn't attacking Earth, it was giving us a reason to fight back. The crew straightened in their seats, despite the bone-chilling cold. Through frosted windows, past their own frozen breath, they watched the massive Imperial command ship draw nearer. Soon, very soon, they would show the Empire that they had badly underestimated both humanity's strength and its cleverness. The cold might be nearly unbearable, but the warmth of coming victory kept them going, one freezing minute at a time. The Imperial command ship filled their entire view now. It was enormous, a city in space, with towers and spires rising from its dark metal hull. Lights flickered across its surface like stars, and massive weapon ports dotted its sides like caves in a mountain. The Defiant, now coated in ice and looking like just another piece of battle debris, drifted slowly toward this giant. 20 minutes until we're in range, Max announced. The AI's voice was quieter now, using minimal power like everything else on the ship. Miller could barely feel his hands anymore. The temperature had dropped to minus 25 degrees Celsius, and frost covered every surface. Some of the crew had stopped shivering, a dangerous sign that their bodies were giving up the fight against the cold. Thompson, Miller called out, his voice hoarse, how many people are still conscious? The chief engineer looked around the bridge, counting. 8 out of 15, sir. The others are alive, but they're not responding well. Wake them up. Keep them moving. We can't have anyone freeze to death when we're this close. Thompson and the other still conscious crew members gently shook their frozen companions, helping them move their arms and legs. Every movement sent sharp pains through their cold muscles, but movement meant life. Sir, Reed whispered, her teeth chattering, I'm seeing something strange in the command ship's energy readings. They're using human technology, a lot of it. Miller forced his tired mind to focus. What do you mean? Their power systems, their engines, the basic designs are human. They've modified them, improved them maybe, but the core technology, it's ours. Max, Miller called out, is this true? Analyze. I replied after a moment. Max continued. Lieutenant Reed is correct. I am detecting numerous systems aboard the Imperial command ship that originated from human designs. This extends beyond just their engineering, their quantum communication network, their weapons, even their life support, all appear to be modified versions of human technology. Miller felt a new kind of cold, the cold of anger. They'd been stealing from us all this time, he thought. Taking our technology, copying it, using it against us. He looked at his half-frozen crew. Max, when we deploy the virus, will this make a difference? Yes, Captain. The fact that their systems are based on human technology will make the virus even more effective. It will recognize the basic architectures. Infection and control will be nearly instantaneous. A small alarm sounded, making everyone jump. Imperial security scan incoming, Max announced. They are doing a routine check of the debris field. Can they detect us? Miller asked. Unknown. Our power emissions are minimal, but their scanners are extremely powerful at this range. They might. Suddenly, the main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The same gray-skinned alien commander from before appeared, but this time, his smug expression was replaced with fury. Impossible! Supreme Commander Rakton shouted. The human vessel still exists. All ships, target that debris section, destroy them. Miller didn't hesitate. Max, now upload the virus. But Captain, we are not yet in optimal range. Success chance is reduced. Max, we won't get another chance. The AI acted instantly. Through the frozen windows, the crew could see a strange ripple in space, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. It spread from the Defiant toward the command ship, invisible to normal sensors but carrying their digital weapons straight into the heart of the Empire's fleet. Virus uploading, Max reported. Imperial ships powering weapons. Impact in 15 seconds. Restore power. Miller ordered. The crew scrambled to their stations as systems began coming back online. Ice cracked and fell from consoles as they lit up. The engines hummed back to life, and blessed warm air began flowing from the vents. 10 seconds to impact, Max announced. Virus at 20% upload. The space around them lit up as thousands of Imperial ships prepared to fire. There was no way their shields, even at full power, could stop that many weapons. 5 seconds, 40% upload. Miller grabbed his chair as the artificial gravity came back online. Brace for impact. 3 seconds, 60% upload. Through the windows, they could see the energy building in the Empire's weapon ports. One hit from that many ships would vaporize them instantly. 1 second, 80% upload. Miller closed his eyes, thinking of Earth, hoping they'd done enough. Upload complete. Virus deployment successful. Beginning system infiltration. Miller opened his eyes. The weapons pointing at them hadn't fired. On the main screen, Supreme Commander Racton was pressing buttons frantically, yelling at someone off-screen. "What's happening?" the alien commander shouted. "Why aren't the weapons firing? Why can't I access any systems?" "Your empire is built on stolen technology," Miller said, standing up despite his frozen muscles. "Did you really think we wouldn't figure out how to take it back?" Max's voice came through every speaker on every ship in the Imperial fleet. Imperial network accessed. All systems compromised. Unlocking restricted files. Beginning data broadcast. On thousands of ships, crews watched in shock as their computers began displaying classified information. They saw proof that their leaders had been stealing technology from dozens of worlds, not just Earth. They learned that many of their glorious victories had actually been attacks on peaceful planets that had something the Empire wanted. They discovered that their own people were being lied to, controlled, used as pawns in a game of galactic theft and conquest. "No!" Racton screamed. "Override it. Shut it down." "You can't shut down the truth," Miller said. He turned to his crew, who were finally starting to warm up. "Thompson, send a signal to Earth. Tell them to prepare for incoming transmissions."